great to be back. I'm at home, and it's always good to go home. I've worked with folks in this room for many, many years, and I know where your heart's at, I know where your sport's at. And just to wrap up on that last question, in my role at MSHA, we're collaborating with OWCP, with DOL, and there is some real interest to fix that problem that we all know is a problem. No, the one on Chester. I think it's it's probably the next last slide. Okay. There may be two different slide packets in there then. Is there a second one? Is there a second group of slides they sent through? I think Debbie was getting one late last night. All right. Debbie, are you here? Okay. Do you know if that other slide packet came through? And, well, I'll go ahead and speak. You can just pull that down. We'll see if we can find the other set that came through last night. So what I wanted to do was spend a little bit of time, as I always do, updating you where we're at on mine safety at MSHA, some of the initiatives that we have ongoing, and we'll just go ahead and take those down till we just see if we can get the other set of slides up. Okay. Give you an update on the progress we've made on probably the most critical issue that I've dealt with since I've been at MSHA, and that we've all dealt with most of our lifetime, and that is the black lung rule. If you go back, and I always I do a report card. You know, that's I believe as federal government officials, the public has a right to know what we're doing and is it working or not. And I started off about 6 years ago as the head of MSHA. And when I came to MSHA, I made it pretty clear what my goals was, and it was pretty simple. It is to improve mine safety in this country so miners could go home safe and healthy at the end of every day, that the families would be taken care of, and we all know what black lung does to the families, just not the miner, and that mining communities would have a better life. I am a believer that we can have an environment of mining in this country where it is pretty civil, and that folks can really go to work, spend their lifetime, retire with their health in place and all the body parts working like any other occupation in this country. And we're working hard to get there. Some of the things was on my list when I walked through the door. Number one was ending black lung. A lot of folks in the room, as I talk about, was with us when we did a rollout in December of 2009, very first plan that I laid out that we were going to spend time to fix, and it was aimed at ending the black lung disease. Also, looking at how we could really eliminate mining deaths in this country was a top issue on my list, because I do believe that miners ought to have a safe work environment. And we kicked off just on the heels of that about 2 months later, or actually a month later in January, what I call the Rules to Live By program. And what I did was we took a look at all the deaths that occurred in the United States over the last decade. What's the most common deaths? What regulations are we citing? And let's go after them. And basically from MSHA, telling our inspectors to look hard for these, and telling the mine industry, these are things that you really, regardless of what else you do in a day, you really need to make sure that you take care of making sure that these protections are in place, because they are the most common killers. Improving the training of miners and of our own agency was high on the list. Meeting with stakeholders. I probably spent more time out and I meet with the operators as much as I do miners. I believe in that, letting folks know what we're doing and why we're doing it, but really increasing stakeholder participation and improving compliance. It is not MSHA's job to fire boss coal mines. And for everybody that works in a mine, you understand what I'm saying. That's the company's job. They're supposed to hire examiners, fire bosses to be examined. We're supposed to go in and audit their work to make sure they're doing what they're supposed to do. One of the first things I did when I took this job, I went around meeting with CEOs, and Don Blankenship was one of those, Brent Harvey from Consol, Alpha, and the rest. And I said, you know, here's my strategy. Been around for 40 years. Y'all got rid of your safety departments. You're going to put them back. You know, we're not going to be your fire bosses. And if you rely on us to be your fire boss, it's going to be pretty expensive, okay? So, and it was a pretty straight up message. And some companies got it right off the bat, and some unfortunately didn't. Improving mine rescue. Anybody that watched mining over about a 10-year period, you can go back to the Jim Walters disaster in 2001, Sago, Alma, Darby, and a number of Crandall Canyon, knew that we needed to fix our mine rescue program. It was in difficult shape. So these were things that was at the top of my list. Plus the thing that I started out as a 19-year-old that was representing miners on mine safety. Workers' voice in the workplace was one of the number one priorities. And these are things that we started back in 2009 and 2010. I'm going to give you a little bit of update here in a few minutes about how we've done. But these are things that I told my agency when I walked in the door. These are our priorities: preventing deaths, ending black lung, giving workers a voice in the workplace, making the operators do their job, holding people accountable, fixing this mine rescue program. And in a couple minutes, I'm going to give you a chart about what we have accomplished and where we're at. And as I told folks, if you look back at where MSHA was back in 2009, hadn't been a confirmed head of the agency for 5 years. That means something because it's a lack of leadership. The guy who was temporarily in charge that had my job, unfortunately, was involved in a failed mine rescue event in Utah, which undercuts really the ability to get things done. We had a lot of inexperienced staff. We had issues about consistency. We had a huge backlog of cases, and for those that remember, the industry was contesting every citation and order that came down the pike, and a few said, "Go ahead, Mr. Policeman, who just stopped me for speeding. I'm not going to pay the fine anyway." You can imagine how that undercuts a system. We'd been carrying a backlog of contested violations at about 6,000 through about 2005. The day I walked in the door, it was 80,000, growing, and no plan. And operators just wasn't paying their bills with all the fines that they were getting. So we had those issues to deal with. We had, as far as chronic violators, really a lack of toughness in the way we enforced the law. A provision Congress put in after the Scotia mine disaster in 1977 showed that the mines that were racking up high violations were just continuing to rack up high violations. There was no real control. There was no pattern of violations, enforcement action ever taken against a mine in the United States. When I arrived, that was put into law in 1977 to rein in the operators that were just basic chronic violators. So we had a lot of other projects that we needed to do, and then of course UBB hit, and we implemented a number of other reforms, two of which I think has been the keystone of really cleaning up the mining industry. One was our impact inspection program that we do every month, scouring the mining industry of over 14,000 mines, and those that rise to the top with bad records or problems, we send the folks out to check those mines out more. And a pattern of violations program that we put some real teeth into and held the chronic mine violators accountable. And we also implemented about 100 reforms over the last 3 years as part of the Upper Big Branch tragedy that really overhauled about 40 of our policy directives in MSHA and had a reorganization of the agency that was pretty wide sweeping. So, Harold, I think that's probably, is that the second one? Did you get a second one in? Okay. We'll just start from the top here in a second. Actually, if you want to go ahead and start now, we'll just go ahead and start rolling through those. It may be good. Which is slide number 1. Okay. You want to go to the second one then? And there should be one right before it. Okay. All right, so I'm going to try to get through this, and I'll just go off the slide. Somehow we got a disconnect. So when I was talking about the, do you have a clicker? Maybe I can use it from up here and find them. Do I have it? Okay. And I know I'm going to push the wrong button here. Is it this middle one? Okay. I can find up in the right one? Okay. So, yep, don't know what happened there. All right, you want to go back to the other set, if you can just pull it up, and I'll use those. We'll go back to where we started out. That was it. Yeah. All right. I'll let you run it from there, and I think we'll be in good shape here. Or David. So, if you look at the pattern violations program we implemented, where we identified the most chronic violators, in 2010, we identified 51 mines. And these are mines that you read about, Freedom Energy, Upper Big Branch, that had just absolutely horrible safety records. And we started imposing the new pattern of violations program, where the old program that was in place for a short period of time says if we catch you on this list, if you reduce your serious violations by 30%, you're off, free to go. I changed that to 70% reduction right off the bat, and imposed a new standard. You could have you could get off with a 50% reduction so long as you had a plan and you followed it. You failed to follow your plan, you're back to 70%. That set a tone in the mining industry that we're really serious about this standard. And over time, through using the same screening tool, by 2013, the last year when we did our last screening, we identified 9 mines that met the same criteria that the folks did or the mines did back in 2010. And the kind of records we're seeing with the mines that we are identifying now are far, far less than those that were being found back in 2010. The program's working. And the mines that's going through this that did get tagged, they dropped their violation and injury rates significantly. As a matter of fact, the latest reviews that we've been doing of mines that went through the program had cut their injury rates about half, which is the most important thing that we want to get out of this. Oops. Now, how do I get back? This one? There, okay. As far as worker rights, I think I'm figuring this thing out. There, yeah. Okay, there we go. As far as worker rights, I said that that's what I've been doing since 19 years old. We implemented some overhauls of our program, and these, the blue charts or the blue post represents miners that were reinstated back to their job, that were fired or lost their jobs over safety. When we came in the door, we implemented a new temporary reinstatement program in 2009, 2010. And you can see that there is a message out to mine operators and miners that if you get fired over raising safety in the workplace, there's a federal agency that has your back. Most ever in 2012, temporary reinstatements. And as far as discrimination cases, that's complaints over being, given the worst job in a mine or having pay cuts or whatever the case may be over safety. That has peaked out in 2013 with 45 cases that we filed on behalf of miners. But there's a clear message we have to miners out there that we are a federal agency, that if you get discriminated against, it's our job to take your case. With regard to dust levels, after we kicked off the End Black Lung Act Now campaign right in here, we kept a steady march with enforcement, with special enforcement programs that we launched, education outreach, to get the dust levels down in the mines. And we all know that these samples only represent about 5% of the time the miner works. And these are the designated occupation samples for underground coal mines. So we know that 95% of the time we don't know what's going on, but the 5% that we did, what we're able to do is get the dust levels to the lowest ever, as operator samples is down to less than 0.70 milligram per cubic meter in 2013, and the MSHA samples are setting around 0.72. But as you see the trend, what we knew is that we're getting better systems in and keeping them in more constantly, to get the dust levels down. Because we all knew that wasn't good enough, because even though we knew what was going on there, 95% of the time we didn't know what was going on in terms of dust exposure to miners with our sampling program. In terms of the backlog that I talked about, if you look back at 2010, we had a caseload of 88,000 violations that was stacked up. And just picture that. If you had your local courts that could handle 100 traffic violations a month, and they woke up one morning and had 1,000, that's exactly where we wound up in terms of the backlog of citations and orders, nobody paying their bills. And we went to Congress jointly with the Department of Labor, was able to get more money, more lawyers, more staff at MSHA. And our backlog right now, as of June, was setting at 28,000. And we can manage the backlog. So mine operators who thought it'll sit there for 5 years before anybody gets to it and they'll forget the facts of the case, it's no longer the case. We were pushing these cases through fairly quickly. The targeted backlog, we set aside 65,000 violations back in 2010 as the ones we wanted to work on. We've eliminated 99% of that backlog, and so we're now working on the main pile. And we have been able to put together a batch of good lawyers that's helped us get there. There's two other slides that didn't make it in. I just want to give you an overview to understand, too, where things were at. In terms of the penalties that were imposed on the mining industry, and this is coal, metal, the whole lot. If you go back to 2000, the total penalties assessed in 2000 was $20 million for the whole mining industry. And that year, MSHA collected $18 million. In 2010, we assessed, remember we started at $20 million. We assessed $126 million to the mining industry, and we collected $114 million of that. We have a collection rate in MSHA. We're serious. It's just like this. You want to have the law complied with, have serious rules, and enforce them. And I think that the message has been pretty clear that we fully intend to do that. Our peak in 2012 is we issued $131 million to mine operators who didn't pay their fines, and we collected $119 million of those in 2012. We have a collection rate of about 90% of what we assess. I don't think there's much of a federal government agency that has that kind of record. And as far as the paper we write, the percentage of paper that we hold at the end of the day that stands is 99%. We lose about 1% of our paper at the end of the day. And that's where we have, I think, moved consistency up to a level that's probably been unmatched in the mining industry. Pretty serious about what we do. And I have probably one of the best enforcement staffs of any federal agency, just great people that know what they're doing, people who came from the mining industry, understand what the dynamics of their jobs are. So on the penalty side, I think that we have changed the model of don't worry about it, let them fine us, we're never going to pay our bills, and it's not going to be that much anyway. It's just that we turned that on its head. The citations and orders issued, and how this is reflecting in the message that I sent out to the world whenever I first came, is that we are not the fire bosses, you are. We've been able to put into place a pretty consistent improvement approach on compliance by the mining industry. And as you see from reductions in 2010, we issued 170,000 violations in the mining industry. We issued 118,000 in 2013. That's about a 30% reduction. Now, we all know on the coal side, there's a number of mines that have closed since the beginning of this enforcement process, but even if you set aside the number of mines closed, there's still been a significant improvement as well at coal mines. The fatality rates, this is what we all go to work every day. That's how we measure ourselves. And as you'll see, if you look at the fatality rates, there's been a constant decline in fatalities, and there's a sort of like a leveling off back around 2002 in terms of mining deaths. So we implement a number of programs that is Upper Big Branch in 2010, where 29 miners died. but we've been able to pull these numbers down to where in 2011 and 12, and the fiscal year 13 was the safest years sequentially in the mining industry. In the last part of 2013, I don't know if folks knew this, but we had a sort of a government shutdown last quarter. We went into sequestration mode in the federal agency, where we had several $1 million of our funds cut overnight. And that was in the spring of 2013. And then when we did get a budget in late 2013 in October, it was based on the sequestration budget cuts. And on that third quarter, when all this activity was happened, that's when a lot of our fatals started to kick up. And it was in the metal on metal industry. It wasn't in the coal side. And we've been trying very earnestly to, through enforcement, education, training, to get that back on track. We've had 9 coal miners die so far this year in the mines, and we've had 18 metal on metal miners die. And a lot of that, the metal on metal deaths came late fall, off of the late fall into early part of 2014. We have a lot of work to do, but the bottom line is that we know that we can impose certain requirements and work with the mining community and take that down to zero. The distance we have is not that great, and there's no reason any miner has to die on the job in this country. So those are some of the updates on where we're at. Some of the other things that we've been working on is, as I said, mine rescue. We established last year a National Mine Rescue Association to support mine rescue and bringing all the players to the table. Last October 30th, I declared that as Mine Rescue Day to honor those that do mine rescue. And on the health front, some things that we're working on as well. There's a documentary we're working with OWCP on to really put together a bit of the history of the black lung issue. And sitting on that second row in this corner, Dr. Rasmussen is one of the folks that is part of that. Dr. Cohen somewhere is part of that, and we're happy to work with OWCP because we do want to document the history of this disease. We're also working on a pipeline project that I've talked about, and it's pretty well coming together. Dr. Cohen's grant that he's working on as part of the Alpha Project. We're working with OWCP, with HRSA, and with NIOSH, which we're going to be having a collaborative session, I think, here in the next couple of weeks again, where we're going to pull together all the data we all have and be able to use that data to understand where we've come from and project where we're going. And this is going to be a major undertaking because we're going to be able to tap into the rural health communities across the country. It's going to be bigger than just the coal mine group. So that's an exciting project. I put together a health group in MSHA, which has all the health specialists in all the different program areas to be a guiding ship. And we've had that for about 2 years. One of the projects that we worked on was taking a look at diesel exhaust. We've had petitioners for rulemaking, letters of request. We're getting ready to respond back out, to those who filed those fairly shortly, but a lot of work that we did came from my my work group to really assess how we're doing to control the diesel emissions in coal mines to protect miners. So, a bit of an update, but the real issue, there it is. There we go. Now it's the real issue that I'm going to discuss today is the black lung rule. This is the biggest thing that we've done that affects everybody in this room. I think we'd all agree. When I started mines 47 years ago, I had no clue what I was getting myself into, but just what opportunities I would have and the things that I would learn along the way. I had a lot of good mentoring by a lot of good coal miners in my lifetime. They taught me what I know, and they are the foundation for what I do, just simply that. But through that course of time, I met a lot of folks that had black lung. I had friends of mine that died from black lung. And, when I go into different meetings, sometime we talk about what's it take to fix the disease, I ask folks, whoever wore a dust sampler before, hold up your hands. I did. And I knew that when that dust sampler was on, let's make sure we got this right. When that dust sampler went off, it was a different world, and I've understood that for most of my mining career. And I understood, too, that as we went on with time, somebody had to do something to end this disease. I call myself the other bookend. Dr. Rasmussen, Dr. Wells was the front end of that, and I was fortunate enough to be on the back end to help, cement in a lot of things that we learned through all this hard work. But if you just look at the statistics, 76,000 miners died as a result or a contribution from black lung, according to death certificates, not what Joe Main says or MSHA or anybody else says. That's what the death certificates say that NIOSH's work has produced for us. If you look at the cost of the disease, $45 billion paid since 1968. That's through the federal compensation programs. Don't count all the states, West Virginia, Kentucky, and several others. That's just through the federal program. Over 200,000 victims have received benefits from that program. And the NIOSH studies, I know last year I think was an update when I was here that Anita's group, through the research that they do, or rather surveillance work, identified the fact that there was over 1,000 miners they found, working miners, not retired miners, working miners, that had the disease over that 10-year period. So we know that miners are still getting the disease. At Upper Big Branch, whenever the investigations closed, we had found that there was 17 of the 24 miners that we could do examinations on. I say we, it was a medical examiner out of West Virginia did the work for us, had evidence of pneumoconiosis. These were miners, some of them very young, some of them very limited experience in the mines. So anybody who says this disease is over does not know what they're talking about. And I just understand from the Department of Labor hearing here about 2 weeks ago that they expect about 7,500 cases this year on pneumoconiosis. That's new cases, refiles, and witness benefit. And if, for folks who want to tell the world that this disease is over, it's just not true. We plan to make it over if we can all work together and implement what we're trying to get in place. So as part of our work and work of the great staff I have at MSHA that spent many, many years helping get us here, was able to issue a new rule effective August the 1st. And that rule is, I'm telling you, it's a game changer. It's my agency's job to make sure that we make work what we put in place. But as we go forward, I think there's going to be coal miners is going to see a new day. And I have some evidence I'm going to share with you today that we found out so far that validates that. The first thing that we did effective August the 1st with that new rule was simply plug a lot of loopholes that was hiding the dust levels that miners are exposed to. Big things on the front end is that we quit this averaging stuff, which meant that on day shift today, I was sampled. David was on the afternoon shift, Dr. Rasmussen on the next shift, and the averages all. And if David's was at 3.2, but the standards was at 2 milligram, nothing had to be done, which meant, that wasn't a problem, that dust that David was breathing. We fixed that by eliminating the whole sampling averaging process. Is that every sample that we take stands on its own merit. If there's an overexposure, we're going to use that as a valid sample. Every valid sample that is an overexposure requires the mine operator now to take corrective action. Old rule, like I say, David, they didn't have to do anything to fix this problem. Now they do. In terms of the full shift, as Anita was pointing out, the 8-hour standard was in place for like 30 years. It was just not true. Miners have been working 9, 10, 12-hour shifts for quite some time. Sampler gets shut off, had to be legally, or it was a voided sample after 480 minutes, regardless of what the miner was exposed to. And there was some evidence out there when that sampler went off, that speed of that shear may have cranked up just a hair bit more. That changed. Full shift has to be sampled now to make sure that we get a good view of what the miner was exposed to. There was a standard that said that for decades that for mine operator sampling, as long as they had 50% production, the sample would be valid. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, let's see, if we mine 1,000 tons a day and we only mine 500 tons while we got that sampler on, and it's okay, and we don't have to worry about telling what's going on out of the 500 tons, that is not okay. We changed that to 80% production to be a valid sample to get us pretty close to a mark that we'd have a better level of comfort over. And for folks that think that those kind of things weren't going on, really didn't understand how the industry was operating. We also made some fundamental changes too with regard to the 95% problem. And I've said through my lifetime, just my own experience talking to miners, head of disease, how we got here. While that sampler was on, there was a lot more attention paid to make sure that result that went to MSHA was a sample that would pass. And do you think that same intensity was applied to the other 95%? It was not. Our approach on August the 1st, the first step that takes care of that problem was requiring a more thorough examination of the workplace by mine operators every day, date boarding that, so there was some evidence that miners could see that more thorough examination, not just not a cursory check, that's a check them all, water spray pressures, the airflows, the curtains being, everything. And by the way, it now requires that record to be signed off by the mine foreman or similar position in a mine. And for those who know how tough it is for us to prosecute under the federal law, understand the importance of having those documentations in place. And we are going to hold mines accountable for that. The month before we put this rule out, folks read about this mine, the Rhino mine in West Virginia, where we went in, did one of our impact inspections, and found the mine operating with the curtains rolled up, dust flying, running wide open. This rule is aimed at fixing that problem. People's going to have to be accountable that they did those examinations and that they were in place. So that is part of the 95%, first phase step that I have sent a word to the industry that we are serious about enforcing that. That law means something, that rule means something, is probably as important as anything else we do. Decertification and recertification provisions that went into effect on August the 1st. Simply this, the mines are required to have certified people. We are not going to allow what's happened in the past. If you got certified back in 1971, you never have to know anything more about it. You have to be recertified every 3 years to keep your license, your certifications. And if you abuse your certification and don't conduct sampling the way that the requirements are, we put a provision in the rule that we can decertify individuals that do that. We expanded the medical surveillance that Anita talked about this morning to let miners know more about themselves. We added spirometry testing for underground miners and for all surface miners. And this gives miners an opportunity to really understand their own lung function when they take these tests, and we're going to encourage miners to use this. And we extended the chest x-ray program to all miners, including surface miners. And that has ramped up a lot more facilities throughout the coal fields doing chest x-rays and spirometry work that you all are going to see. And I think there's been a number of applications and a number of contacts made to folks in this room about using their facilities to accomplish that. If you look at the results of what have we done so far and what does it tell us? We're only into this rule, a month and a half? We've taken, since we kicked the rule off on August the 1st, we've taken 2,556 samples MSHA has. That's a lot in mines across the country. We went out, we spent probably, I think, about 26 different work sessions with mine operators, miners, mining organizations to explain this rule, let everybody know what we're doing, and simply have the best opportunity for miners to have the regulations in place from day one. So we started very quickly doing our sampling. We did 2,556. We've had already 774 operator samples sent to us. And out of that batch, as of this morning, we've had 9 violations. I want you to think about this. If you listen to what the industry was saying is, this is going to shut us down, we're never going to be able to clear this path, I've looked at the data. I've eaten and breathed this data for 3 years, and I know if they did what they were doing when we were there, because we had an 80% production standard for many, many years, that we can make this rule work. This rule is working, and I can tell you there's a bunch of coal miners today, surface miners and underground miners, that have a much cleaner environment than they ever had. And as this rule keeps embedding itself in, and that culture changes, like we took those chronic violators, you don't want to be a chronic violator anymore. You're going to get on that program. You will not want to be a chronic dust violator either. But there's a path that folks can choose to make sure that miners are well protected. As far as certifying new dust samplers, since August the 1st, or actually since we announced the rule back in Morgantown on April the 28th, we announced a plan to make opportunities for mine operators to have more certified examiners. We have certified over 1,000 new dust sampling examiners that's part of this new program since we made that announcement in Morgantown. So our folks have been out, preparing the mining industry. So bottom line is that we have put pieces in place that step by step we're going to change the culture of dust control in the mining industry. What we're seeing is evidence that it can be done, and we're going to continue to share all the evidence we have and the information we have to let folks know the progress that we're making. And I am just comfortable that as long as we all we're not going to accept black lung anymore in this country. That's the mantra from the government, from the miners, and from the mining community. That we'll be looking back one of these days and say, did they used to have a Black Lung Association or something like that? And my goal is to put my old organization out of business to the extent that we can rid this disease. And I can tell you this, there's going to be violations. There's going to be people who still cheat the system. We're going to have to be there to catch them. And you're probably going to read some more about that maybe in about the next 2 weeks. In concluding, I just want to say that we have a great Secretary of Labor at MSHA, and he was with us in Morgantown. For the folks that was there, he's very passionate about the things we're passionate about, so much like us that, I tell folks it's scary sometimes, but he's just a great individual that expects us to be fair, be honest, but get the job done and protect our nation's miners. And that's something that, as well, is expressed by our president that gives us the total support to be out doing this. With that, I know I've taken a little bit of extra time here probably this morning. I thank you for the opportunity to be here. We are making progress. I have a great staff at MSHA that helps implement all the things that we line out to do. We've got a lot of work ahead of us. We know we have litigation over this rule that it's not totally embedded yet. And we believe we implement a rule that will stand the test of time, but it's another challenge ahead of us. But with that, thank you very much. And anytime I have left, I'll take some questions. Okay? In the back.
Do the mines know when you're coming?
We have this law that says that nobody can give advance notice. We know this is a problem. As you'll read about again next month, the mine that we had to go to extraordinary measures, and it was a mine that we actually had advance notice at some time before. But let me tell you how hard it is not to have advance notice in a mine. When we start coming up in Appalachia, this road, and the guard shack sees us coming up the road in their government car, and you got cell phones, you got texting, you got CBs on truckers that's running in and out, everybody's got a phone. It is a difficult proposition. What we've been able to do at mines where we think that's a problem is get very creative about getting in that mine, and the Rhino mine was a good example of that, where we was able to get all the way to the face of the mine and finding dust flying. Again, you'll read about another example this month, but it is a problem. I think we're better at both identifying mines with our impact program, and we're better about figuring out creative ways that they think we're just like anybody else till we get to that last phone. Yes?
I'm just wondering, with these new kind of like certification things that are undergoing with this new
A good question. So what we have, the way our law is structured is, and let's go back to the dust controls that have to be in place with all the different seams, heights, and all that. Every underground coal mine has to have their own individual mining plan that addresses the individual type of conditions that they're using there and the individual controls for both methane to prevent mine explosions, the controls in place to control respirable dust. As part of the rule, every one of those underground mines had to submit a new plan to us to accomplish all the new parameters that they have to examine to. And as part of that, they have to train up the folks that's doing the examinations to do those. Okay? And as part of that, let me tell you, we spend a lot of time letting folks know this is a new law. This is a new set of regulations. What you're doing, the cursory inspections you do before, like when we went in and found Upper Big Branch without any water sprays even on. No. You got your list, and you have to examine it. But they're mine specific. So every mine operator submits their own plan. We have to review it and approve it. But that's the individualistic approach that we take from one mine to the other. Okay, and this new certification program that I talked about, this is bringing everybody up to date about here's what you have to do when you're sampling, here's what you have to do whenever you're calibrating these instruments, so everybody's got a fresh start in terms of understanding what the standards are. Yes, in the back. So what happens to the money is really simple. Under federal law, MSHA cannot keep any of the money, cannot cut any deals to have the money diverted in any special way. All the money goes directly to the U.S. Treasury, just like, and it's dispersed as part of the how they disperse government money. Yes. No, and there's actually prohibitions about us being able to even do that. Yeah, and it's a standard not just affects us. Every federal agency is basically restricted from doing those kind of things with fines collected. Yes.
On the issue of prior notification of them notifying people who pays the fine, is there any penalty either for the individual involved in that or for the company when they're found to be given prior notification?
Yes, there is. And we issued, I know I did a report about a year ago. We issued about, just 2010, I think it's about 40 different violations for that. Okay. The question is there a penalty that we impose when we find people using advance notification? So the most stringent is if the Justice Department decides to take up a case. As everybody knows, that probably paid attention to this, we had sought to, we supported changes that were being proposed by Congress in the Byrd bill that would have enhanced our ability to prosecute more those that engage in criminal conduct. That never was passed. We have a very weak set of provisions for prosecuting criminal conduct under our statute. In terms of things that I'll tell you some of the things we have found when we got to the mine, and I'll use this and hypothetically it's going to be pretty close. We need some orange paint. Just something that simple as just the code that MSHA's on the property, okay? Over a pager phone of 200 and some people in the mine track it down, okay? Nobody knows where it's coming from, and nobody's ever going to claim. But we that's a difficult one to track back to prosecute as far as individuals. Oh, but yeah, there's different codes that's used at mines that different mines have come up with over time. But we've got pretty savvy about when we hear what's going on. But you can only prosecute something to the extent that you have the evidence to do it, and we do issue a number of enforcement actions that at least the general ones that we can't do. But we have another approach too, and you read about them in our impact inspections where we really think that may be happening. We go in and have a process of capturing the phones to get to the mines like we did the Rhino mine last month, and we've used that a number of times to try to get to the mine to figure out what's really going on. Yes, sir.
Joe, I just wanted to say that we've been doing some preliminary work analyzing the pattern of violations data sets, and they're really real in the sense that it's not just a punitive thing where you're just going out and writing them willy-nilly, but they've been correlating with injuries. When we're looking at some of these workers' comp data sets, it's been correlating very, very highly. So it's not just bureaucratic stuff, but it actually is an exposure variable. Minds with bad violations are sick minds, and so I think that this work is really, really good. I want to thank you for it.
And if we clean out the universe of chronic violators, we're going to improve the safety level for those miners. And at the end of the day, there's going to be more people going home without being sick or ill. I mean, it just when you look at mines like that, and I go back to one of those 17 mines that was on that list in 2010 was Upper Big Branch. And we all know, look at the miners we had out at mine that had black lung. How that really translates into disease and injuries in the mines. Okay, before Linda comes up here and takes the microphone away from me, I just want to say, thank you, Linda. I appreciate, the opportunity to be here. With your support and help, we are making progress. Without your support and help, we won't. You know what the plan is. We're, set to be fair, honest, but straightforward about putting good standards in place and enforcing those. I think the record that you saw, the mining industry sees. And whenever folks, this wasn't this way back in 2005. $20 million versus $120 million of fines or $126 million of fines. Chronic violators, some of those mines aren't operating anymore. That was on our list, our impact list. Those that's coming through the other end are improving. The life is better for coal miners and metal on metal, gravel miners, where their companies have went through these programs. Coming out the other end, we measure those. So we know we're making a real difference here. But we're going to be measuring hard the biggest thing we just did here, which is, what is the data telling us about the exposure of miners to coal dust. And our mission is to keep OWCP and folks here in this room to have to take up claims for people who got sick. I understand that as well as probably anybody on this earth. And it is my desire that while I'm here, we just keep squeezing that to zero. I want to thank you all for all you do. Thank you for your help, and good luck.